Jyoty, thank you for your time and your energy on this Tuesday. I was going to say Monday. That's what lockdown does. Tuesday afternoon. And welcome to Delic Sessions number 4. If you're new here, I'm just going to do a super brief intro on what Delic Network is and what these sessions are about. It's an operating system to build your music future. And this includes everything from project organizing to management and sharing your music. And these Delic Sessions, of which this is the 4th one, if I'm correct, titled It's a Man's World. That's the theme of today. We will be discussing why the music's gender gap has remained unchecked for so long and actually what can be done to fix it. And we will be looking at different segments or chapters within today's talk, everything from both ends of the spectrum. So that means artists, grassroots level, but also looking at CEOs, boardrooms, behind the scenes, more senior level positions, looking at labels and publishing, and statistics and findings that have come out of research, and also what we think, our speakers and panelists think, can be a solution to fight this huge gap that still exists. We have an amazing panel for you today, and what I'll do is just briefly introduce you by name, but I'll let them tell you by themselves who they are and what they do, and that will tell you why they are invited and the right person to speak on today's topic. Let's start with Harriet Jordan-Wrench, because you're on my top left. I don't know how everybody else is seeing it. Founder of music platform CTRL Sessions and founder of growth community Girls to the Front. Welcome and thank you.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, so I am Harriet Jordan-Wrench, and I started a live event platform called CTRL Sessions. So CTRL Sessions started in 2011 and featured many famous artists such as Katie Musgraves, Bastille, Lumineers, and also lots of unknown artists and everything in between. We started a live event in 2014 that happened at the Hospital Club and Soho Farmhouse, and excitingly, we've got our first show in 6 months on Thursday. I also started an artist platform called Girls to the Front that is looking to do exactly what this panel is about and address the gender balance in the music industry from the artist side. And that's me.
Thank you. Super busy. It sounds like, and congratulations on at least having some sort of prospect of another live event. That must be so exciting.
Yeah, it's very exciting. I'm not sure what the vibe's going to be like. I think there might be like one person for every mapped out box in the room, and it's already at Soho Farmhouse, so you have to engineer the vibe a little bit, but we'll get there.
It'll be fantastic. Nothing less. And then we also have Nadia Khan, who is one of the first female artist managers within Grime. I know there's some impressive names, Nadia. I will let you name drop yourself, and also the founder of platform Women in Control. Welcome and thank you.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. So yeah, my name's Nadia, and I am primarily a music manager. I've been working in the industry for over 19 years, and 16 years of which as a music manager. I started in Grime, so my first client was Lethal Bizzle, and I still manage him 16 years later. And that's been an experience and journey as itself, being a female manager. And I also managed 2 female artists who I picked up over the last 7 years. And I'm the founder of Women in Control, which is the platform that I started around 3 years ago to empower women in the music industry, and look at the gender gap, look at the issues, look at the barriers for women in music, and how we can kind of tackle that. And that's just kind of stemmed from my own experiences as being a woman in music myself.
Brilliant. Very impressive. Thank you so much. And then we also have Vick Bain, former CEO of, and I hope I say this right, because I never know, and maybe this is the Dutch in me, is Ivors Academy, because we would say Ivors.
Yeah, Ivors. It's now known as the Ivors Academy, because it's owned and run the Ivor Novello Awards since 1955. That sort of was the most famous brand. But when I was there, it was the British Academy of Songwriters, Composers and Authors, BASCA.
BASCA, yes.
But everybody got that wrong as well. So yeah, so I've been working in the music industry for 25 years. Half of that time I was at BASCA. In 6 years, I was the chief executive there. And that's when I really started doing my campaigning and research. So I left BASCA a couple of years ago. I'm now doing a PhD looking at women's careers in the UK music industry, which I'm finding fascinating. And in between that, I'm doing lots of consulting, working with different music clients, and doing lots more research as well. And also, have to say, I'm a board director of Delic.
Yes, the advisory board member. Thank you so much as well. As you can tell, we have some amazing speakers who definitely have an impressive CV and a lot of experience within the UK music industry. And I think before we get into statistics, findings, research, and looking at facts and stats, what would maybe be a nice way to kind of ease ourselves into the conversation is if you could maybe all give me a particular moment or a memory, or it could even be an experience or a job that really made you feel passionate about this gender gap within the UK music industry, something that really ignited something in you that has clearly led to you turning this into action, because it's not just something you are passionate about and you feel some sort of way about, but you have turned it into part of your work as well. So Harriet, maybe we could start with you if something comes to mind.
Yeah, so I think with me it was, I think I had a sort of always had an unconscious, not even a favoring towards women. It was always just an equal, it was an equal stage in terms of who we put on our YouTube channel, in terms of who we put on the stage. But it was actually when I started learning about what was actually happening in the industry and how kind of unfair it was, that I actually went back across all of the history of who's played on the Secret Session stage and found that we were actually 60% women on our stage. And I guess in doing that, I then started looking at other people's stages and looking at festival stages, and everybody's seen the sort of festival lineups with the men taken out, just leaving the women left. And I think what I became passionate about was just wondering what everyone else is missing, why they're not doing this, because we've heard a lot about people saying that, you know, there was that festival director who said more girls need to be picking up guitars and things like that, and just saying that they weren't out there. And I just knew firsthand that they were there, and they were there, so many more artists that I could put on our stage. And every month it would kind of upset me, because I'd be like picking between all these amazing artists, and there'd be loads of women that left over that couldn't get that opportunity. And then there were all these other promoters saying that there weren't enough women, so just none of that weighed up for me. So that's why I became kind of more vocal about it.
And Vic, what about you?
I think for me it was a growing realization in every part of the music industry I was going into, but I think it really struck home when I analysed the data for over 60 years worth of winners of the Ivor Novello Awards. So nobody had done that before. Obviously, being chief exec, I had access to that data. So I crunched all of the numbers, and realised that women had only won 6% of the awards given out in over 60 years, and that had only gone up to 10% since 2010. And it was such a low number. I was really quite shocked. You know, it was lower than the POS for Music membership statistics, which I think is about 17% women now. So it was lower than even that. And I was really shocked, you know, that I was working for an organization that ran these brilliant awards, you know, really prestigious awards, and that so few women were writing music. And that started for me a journey of you know, of more research. It sort of kicked off my my journey towards publishing, counting the music industry, where I analysed the rosters of over 300 labels and publishing companies, because I was really interested in that pipeline. You know, the people who end up with awards and the people who end up on the main stages, you know, the top acts on the festivals. It all sort of goes back to, well, who's being supported by a label, who's being supported by a publishing company. So that sort of started that journey for me. Very
impressive. How long did this research take, if I may ask?
Counting the music industry was it was about 6 months, nearly full time. Yeah. To do that. 4 months to do the actual you know, roster identification, because I looked at the profiles of about 30,000 musicians, and then had to make a gender decision on whether they were presenting as male or female. So a lot of that took a lot of research, you know, to find other data, not just label and publisher websites, but other corroborating data as well, to make sure that I had that identification correct. And then another couple of months to write up the actual report. So yeah, it was 6 months of hard work. I was obsessed.
Very impressive, but you know, the numbers don't lie. So you know, that's what leads us here and having this conversation as well. Nadia, the floor is yours, please.
Yeah, so I think, you know, my journey with Women in Control, like, you know, it stemmed from my own personal experiences of being a manager in the industry for 16 years. You know, as well as being a male-dominated music industry, you know, management is a really male-dominated job role. And particularly when I started out in grime, you know, there wasn't really an infrastructure around it. So it was really challenging to kind of come into that role. When I came into it, I didn't, you know, come in thinking, oh, I'm a female manager, I'm going to experience different challenges. I just came into it with, you know, passion, determination, grit to like really, you know, manage an artist and make a successful artist. So it was only through going through those experiences that I started to realize like a lot of situations over the years that happened to me. For example, you know, multiple times me, you know, booking video shoots, me being the commissioner for all these video shoots, me being in charge of every aspect, and then me turning up to the actual shoot and then somebody automatically assuming that I'm a makeup artist or a stylist or an extra. And that happened so many times. Or me not being able to get into venues when my act is performing. I've had to go to the door and, you know, security have laughed in my face, like, you know, not let me in. And I've had to call people that work for me to come out and get me. Or even just, you know, general things day to day where I'm just seeing men beside me getting given automatically the credit for work that I've done over the years. Or, you know, somebody coming into a room and just automatically assuming that the guy that's just my artist friend, that he must be the manager and I must be there as, I don't know, whatever other role, like a groupie or just an assistant. So it's accumulation of all of that. And I was, you know, I kind of really wanted to look into it and understand, why was this happening to me? I wasn't really, you know, happy about it. I started to look into research, and I really found that with women, you know, we do tend to, we make excellent managers, by the way. You know, we're so organized, we're caring, we're nurturing, you know, we're very efficient. But, you know, I noticed that this was a trend within women, and it's in research, that we just kind of get our heads down and just do the work. And we believe that we're going to be recognized for the great work that we've done, and we're going to excel and, you know, advance through our careers in that way. Whereas men do take a more strategic approach towards their careers and make strategic and key relationships. So once I acknowledged that, I think that was a big turning point for me to be like, do you know what, I do have to take some accountability and on myself in terms of like how I'm allowing myself to be treated as well. And that's one of the reasons I started Women in Control, because I looked around me and I saw there was incredible women in the industry, but they weren't shouting about their own achievements. They weren't bigging themselves up, and nobody around them was either. So there was obviously this huge culture of the boys club, all the, you know, the men, everyone patting each other on their backs and supporting each other, but there wasn't that network there for women. And, you know, it was kind of very isolating in a lot of experiences, you know, like I said, you know, going on tour with like 50 to 60 guys and being the only female there, you know, it can be challenging in other ways. So I really wanted to step outside of my comfort zone and be like, do you know what, I need to try and change the conversation and encourage other women to speak out. And it was amazing, because once I started to speak with other women, I really realized that we had a lot of shared experiences, and I guess society, or social media wants you to paint like a perfect kind of image or a picture of your job or your life, because it can look glamorous to the outside world that I'm traveling on tour. So I really started to break that down and be more open and honest about my experiences, and be like, yeah, you know what, it might look like this, but the reality of it as a woman, I have to, deal with really difficult situations. I don't get spoken to in the best way all the time. It is really challenging. And like I said, once I started doing that, I feel like it started to empower other women, because and empowered me, because other women go through the same thing. And it's just about not being embarrassed or ashamed about that. It's about, creating some awareness about that, and that's going to bring the start to change. And obviously, as we're going to go into the conversation as well, like I'm a manager of 2 female artists, and I don't know, I naively, when I took on a female artist again, I didn't see that there was going to be any barriers or additional barriers to my female artists. But it was only from working with female artists that I just was like, there's just so less opportunities, and it's just so much harder. And yeah, I'm sure we're going to get into all of that in the conversation. But yeah, that was like what really, pushed me to want to start doing what I'm doing with Women in Control.
Brilliant. Yeah, I can definitely relate to the whole showing up to places. I think as a DJ with a name that a lot of people don't know is a common name for a woman or a man. Showed up to many gigs, and are you the DJ's girlfriend? I can be my own girlfriend, but no. It's just but you know what? The more we talk about it, the more we make change for people to come after us. And I think that's also like the main focus. As much as we want to change for people who are currently in the industry, I think the work needs to start here, so that moving forward, hopefully it can become a little bit more fair. I've taken note, by the way, about Vic, when you mentioned award winners, and I definitely want, if by any chance I forget to bring it up, when we talk about artist level grassroots issues and solutions, I definitely want to bring up something interesting that is happening with a lot of big award ceremonies and changes they're trying to make that I'd like to get your opinion on. But for now, let's start with exactly that part of the conversation, which is looking at the gender gap on grassroots level. And we're talking about artists. So the producers, the creatives, the singers, the songwriters, the people at the forefront, the people who end up on playlists, on radio, on stages, the ones that we usually, the first people we think of when we talk about the music industry. And what I saw in the research findings actually is that a little over 14% of currently signed to 106 music publishers, and under 20% signed to 219 record labels are female. That's a little bit insane, because when you think about artists, I think especially nowadays, you think of as many male artists as you can think of the Beyoncés and the Nicki Minaj's and whoever else comes to mind. But really, when you break it down, and the great example of that are those festival flyers with the men's name being blocked out, you see that this is actually not really represented when it comes to career opportunities and promotions and turning it into a living. And what I also found really interesting was that it was mentioned that looking at education levels from GCSEs all the way to post-grad, girls or women actually gain better grades than their male counterparts. And I just wanted to mention that before I get your opinion on these numbers, because I find it really interesting that education level is actually mentioned within that part of the research, because that's, again, not something we often think about, that could play a role. Because as an artist, especially talking on behalf of Delic, a platform like Delic, as an artist, you often don't think about the business aspect of being successful. You can have the talent, but what about organization, publishing, management, branding, marketing, PR, all these things that you often don't think about when you dream about gracing a stage. Nadia, can I start with you? When we talk about these numbers of artists signed to labels and having publishing deals or having music publishers, how have you experienced that as firsthand working with artists who deal with these companies and organizations on a daily basis? How have you experienced that with your male roster versus your female roster?
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of the research that you mentioned comes from Vick's Counting the Music report with the numbers of, female artists signed to music publishers and record labels. And I think data reporting like that is so important because, myself being a manager over the years, I've experienced challenges with female artists, but being able to see that data in black and white, it just kind of really reinforces what you already know is existing and going on within the industry. So yeah, like I said, when I took on a female artist and it was a black female rapper, I did not think about it that there were going to be additional challenges or there were going to be additional barriers at the time. And immediately I found that when I was presenting my artists for radio or whether it was for live slots, it was like, oh, we've already got one female artist booked, so we don't need another one. And that was literally the real honest, no, blatant response from, promoters, from radio. It was like, we've already got a female book, so we don't need anyone else. So we lost out on a lot of opportunities for that. And it kind of led to a lot of frustration with my artist as well. And she actually did a song where she called out all the guys and was like, I'm better than the guys or on the same level as the guys. I want to be taken and respected on that level. So, we had to do a lot of work with her to kind of get her respected and accepted. But even if you're talking about conversations of like going to record labels and you take a female artist in, there's a lot of comparison that goes on for female artists in terms of, oh, well, again, we've already got a female artist. How is she different to this artist that we've already signed? And, they could have 6 to 10 to 20 male artists on their roster. And they don't really look into that same differentiation categories of like, how do they look appearance wise? That's another thing. Obviously, women are really judged about their, about their image as well. And it's like, the male artists can have, similar sounds, they can be creating similar music, but they're allowed to be seen as like different individuals. Whereas, women, anyone doing a similar sound is seen like, oh, well, that's too much. You're filling the space up too much. They kind of only have one slot for one female that's going to be successful. And, that's reflected in a lot of the data. So, I'm really, admire all Vick's work that she's done. And, it led me to also want to look into, data research of my own to really break down what's going on in the industry. So, I'm aware of it because, again, when I'm pushing my artists to radio, I look at the playlist and I see the lack of female artists on these playlists. When I look at pitching to Spotify playlisting or Apple playlisting or any streaming, again, I look at the playlist and I can see that they're heavily dominated by male artists, and women are not getting given the same opportunity. So I really wanted to again use data reporting to kind of break that down. So my recent report, which I collaborated on with Linda Coogan-Byrne, because she'd done a fantastic report on the gender disparity in radio in Ireland, and I was like, you need to do this in the UK because it's going to be as bad here. And she was kind of like, I think it's really bad in Ireland. And I was like, I think it's bad here too, please, let's do it. So we collaborated on that together. But, we looked at 31 individual UK radio stations and looked at the top 20 acts that they played over the period of a year. And found a disparity, with some radio stations playing 100% male artists within their heavy rotation slots. Radio 1 comes in there at 85%, BBC One Extra around 76%. So like some of these, figures are shocking, but you have to see that data in black and white to see, well, this, kind of starts to make sense of like what we're experiencing as with female artists, or what we know exists with women. And I also extended the report to include the top 100 radio most played songs of 2020. And out of those top 100, I did a further analysis breaking down female artists and male artists and the percentages there. And also looking at female artists doing solo records, because there's a trend that's been happening over the last 30 years that women being in a song by themselves, that number is declining, and that women actually have to collaborate with men to get success, whether it's to get, chart within music or get played at radio. And that was reflected in the data as well, with men featuring on 81% of all songs within the top 100 airplay chart. I also did an analysis going into the songwriters, and women are only 19% of female songwriters out of the top 100. And it's even worse when you look at women producers, with only 3% being credited amongst the top 100. But, you know, I just think that data reporting really helps us to like have that black and white data there and be like, right now we can start to have that conversation of why is this in whatever area is going on, and what can we do to start to change those things.
Yeah, brilliant. And I think especially the comparison thing, we've seen it. I remember being a kid and it was either Christina or Britney, just looking at pop artists like that everyone would know. And now look, I'm about to turn 30 and it's still, is it Nicki Minaj or Cardi B? But why not both? Because you had Biggie and Tupac, remember? And that was okay. So it's a lot of unlearning. I think that's the main thing I noticed with these conversations is there's so much unlearning to do at top level, but also coming down to consumers of music as well. Harriet, for you book a lot of artists. And you're in a position where, you know, you can give opportunity. How do you see these numbers, and how come, you know, you've explained briefly that you have a way of just being drawn to artists or women within the industry anyways, but when it comes to operations, how come your numbers have been so nice, so good? So what do you see?
I mean, yeah, and I think, I mean, fundamentally it's about equality, which is, you know, listed as one of the UN's top 15 world problems. It's not that anybody's asking for a favor or anybody's asking for a charity, and it's not this, oh, we'll put a female artist on the lineup. It's just decency and equality, which is what in a world in 2020 we should all be operating under. And I think probably because, you know, it's Secret Sessions is a female-led business, I think I've probably had a leaning towards female artists just because I'm a female, and you know, you can't be what you can't see. So I think I naturally will program women anyway, because I'll just have a leaning towards giving them a chance. But I think within the wider music industry, there's, from what I can tell, there's quite a lot of kind of passing the buck. And, you know, you will have seen with the Brit Awards this year, I think there was one female nominated across 23 mixed gender slots. And the Brit Awards will tell you that, you know, they have to do their awards based on what's been in the charts, and the public choose the charts. So they're blaming the public, and the public only like men and guitars apparently. But actually there's just this sort of rotation of people blaming each other, and you don't really know where it's come from, but it is a systemic issue that is happening in the music industry. And the only way that I can see to fix it is to just work at a grassroots level and make sure, you know, Secret Sessions is a small stage. We're working with artists that are just sort of coming through. So the only way that I can kind of actively help is to make sure that we are putting on an equal lineup. And I would urge anybody else that is operating at this level to also do the same. I think the work that Vic and Nadia and other sort of researchers have done is really, really important, because it highlights it. I think we all knew there was an issue there, but I don't think anybody knew quite how bad it would come out. You know, I was reading Nadia's radio report this week, and just, you know, it looked like it was a joke, you know, particularly with some radio stations playing 100% male. Like, it's not just a music industry issue. That's just like basic equality. Like, how can anybody see that as fair? Yeah, so I think my advice to anyone sort of operating in the industry at a grassroots level is just to make sure that you are being fair on your stages and in your content. And then, you know, from a more senior level, I think it's really important that we keep getting research like Vic and Nadia has done, so that the people who are operating at the top of these companies are employing more women, so that those women like me will then probably book more women just naturally and give more women chances.
It's so interesting that, you know, the blame was put on the voters and the audience, the public, when really and truly, if you think about it, the public is force-fed music by you. No, we take it back to the companies, back to the big organizations, back to the rooms that artists themselves can't even get their foot in the door.
Yeah.
So and Vic, I'm going to ask you a very difficult question, but where does the problem lie and where do we fix it? Because how do we then get to Harriet's solution of, okay, these people should hire more, women or female identifying staff members, but why isn't that already happening?
Well, it is at entry route level. So the diversity research that UK music produces every 2 years shows that for I think at age up to the early 30s, male, female people working in the music industry behind the scenes, it's about equal, or maybe slightly more women, which sort of reflects the fact that we are 51% of the population. But as you go through the older age groups, 35 and over, 45 and over, 55 and over, the women just disappear. So there's a lack of support and progression for women in those executive roles. Presumably some of it's to do with motherhood, or parenting, or caring responsibilities as well. But there are possibly other factors, such as not being supported, not being promoted in the same way as the male counterparts, and other barriers and conditions which are making women drop out. For women in the artist roles, for the musicians, that drop off happens very early on in their careers, possibly in their early 20s, which is why I looked at the education pipeline into the industry as well. And because when I was showing my early statistics around to various senior execs in the music industry, with the label and the publishing statistics, the feedback, or some of the feedback that came back to me was, well, women just aren't as interested in creating or playing music in anywhere near the same numbers as men, and they're not as good at creating and performing music as men. So that was an opinion that came back to me, which is why I then went and worked with the Higher Education Statistics Authority, which is a sort of Quango government department, which has a legal obligation to collect demographic data on everyone studying degree level in the UK. So I worked with them, and they gave me that data, which showed, as you say, up until A levels, there's more girls than boys studying music, and the girls get better grades. So certainly up until 18, the degree data didn't give me grades, although that would have been fascinating. But it did sort of indicate who's participating in degrees, and it sort of depended on the exact specialization. But looking at all of the music performance degree students over the past 5 years, there's about 100,000 people studying music performance degrees, and it was something like 45% are female, 55% male. So there is a dropout in participation there for sure, but it's very minor, and it's nearly equal, and it's certainly not the 20% that I found were currently signed to UK labels. So to go from 45% of graduates, who presume they are skilled and you're good at performing and enthusiastic and ambitious. You don't do a music performance degree if you're not interested in music performing. So the fact that only 20% of the rosters of UK labels of female shows that there's a real drop off very early on in their career. So that's what I'm really interested in looking at solutions which will better support women, especially in those early years, to help them get their foot on the ladder. I really think that labels need to be labels and publishers need to be a lot more proactive about searching out female talent and nurturing them and investing in them to the same level as they do men. You know, I think they play a very big part. And as I say, you know, it's then a sort of pipeline to the festival stages, pipeline to the radio playlists, a pipeline to the award ceremonies. Labels are incubators, you know, they're financial investors. So why are they not signing as many women as there are men? That's what I'm really fascinated about.
We have a comment here as well from an attendee, John Porter, who said systematic sexism is the same as systematic racism, ignorance, hoping both can be fought hard over the next 20 plus years to improve life across the planet. I've always worked with great female artists. The playing field has never been level. I think this is, and then I added fear as well. I think this is something that a lot of women who work in the industry have experienced. It's just sort of a intimidation. And I think this is actually a topic or a conversation that returns in many issues, even when we look at race issues, for example, or equal rights. My favorite thing is people act like it's a pie chart. So if you take opportunity or rights away, or to give more rights or equal rights and opportunities to one group of people, that it would mean that it takes away from another group of people, which is insane. If you think about it, that's not how life works, really. And I think what I wanted to mention earlier on, and I want your opinion on how you feel about this, is looking at award ceremonies. And you're starting to see this slowly. But this is a discussion that's currently quite big, is that we know a lot of award ceremonies to have categories: best male, best female, and then diving deeper into a more specific category. And now the discussion is to remove male and female and just do best country, best pop, best rap, for example. How do we feel about that? Vic, do you want to start?
Yeah, if I can leap in there,
Yeah.
having been responsible for various music industry award ceremonies over the years, not just the Ivor Novello Awards, but the British Composer Awards as well. So I've got a very deep understanding of that. Now, both of those award ceremonies didn't have gender-specific awards, and therefore the result was only 6% of awards, Ivor Novello Awards given out in over 60 years had gone to women. And you know, so I was very supportive. I still am very supportive of there being separate sex music awards until the industry is a bit fairer, until the industry is signing 50% men and women, and then the songs and the music that are entered into these awards will have equal numbers of submissions and nominations, and then we might see you know, a real egalitarian and genuine reflection of who, you know, who's deserving to win these awards. So I would personally introduce sexed awards just until the rest of the industry is a little bit more caught up. But that's just my personal opinion.
Thank you for that. I actually want to, Harriet, if I could ask you a question that has been presented to us with someone who's attending. How can men be better allies to women in music? From John. I think that's a great question and can't be asked enough.
Yeah, I mean, I think in these kind of discussions across the board, there seems to be there's a risk of it becoming us and them, which, you know, it doesn't need to be at all, because there are a lot of men working very hard to, you know, equal the balance, and lots of men really supporting women in the industry. But I think one thing that some of this comes down to is that women and men across any industry don't always need the same treatment, and don't need to, you know, working with a female artist might be quite different. I'm sure, Nadia, you can confirm that working with a male artist might need completely different things as a manager than a female artist would need. And I think it's less about sort of giving these females these special opportunities. It's more about just working how we can help these artists. You know, I saw a quote the other day about something about, it's about helping these women onto the stage. It's not that there's this, you know, this big emperor man that needs to come down and say, here's the opportunities. It's, you know, it's across the board. Everybody needs to work out how we can better support the talent, no matter what their gender is. And it might involve, you know, working slightly differently with females, because females might respond differently to certain opportunities. You know, we know that, you know, if there's a call out for a job, that a man will apply if he has 20% of the skills, but a woman would need 110. That's probably wrong, but it's something like that. And I don't think, I think it's more about just, you know, being sensitive towards people's needs, whether they're male or female, or whatever in between, and being sensitive to the kind of individual, as opposed to just these kind of blanket statements and blanket call outs.
I was going to bring up that article as well. I think the numbers are 35% versus 85%, but then I read an article literally this week that said women will only apply if they feel like they could meet 100% of the criteria. Again, this is something that starts from a really young age. This is something that starts way before someone even knows that they want to dive into a certain career. So yeah, I think very important point, different needs, not just in one size fits all.
Yeah, and I think just on that, sort of fundamentally, the music industry is like really hard to, if you're an artist, to make a career in the music industry, like it's already a pretty low chance that this is going to happen for you. And I think if you then are on the back foot even more by the fact that you're a female and you don't see, you know, it must appear like basically winning the lottery, like being a female artist that needs to sustain a living, and looking at the industry and thinking, right, how am I going to get a career out of this? Like, it's no wonder that they think that it can't happen.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Nadia, I would like to ask you a question that's also been sent in by Tom. And Tom says, there's been a lot in the news recently about unfair bias within automated algorithms. Have you seen any challenges or opportunities when it comes to AI and the gender gap in music?
Yeah, I guess, you know, it just echoes my own experiences with female artists, and, you know, some of the conversations and comments that have been made, you know, earlier on, that feedback has been given to me personally on female artists. And when I've asked why, you know, there isn't equality, why more females aren't on specific playlists, I've got responses back that, you know, algorithms and skip rates and, you know, different statistics and data like that is taken into consideration. So, you know, if we're solely relying on algorithms to create these playlists, then they're going to be continually cutting women out, because, you know, we're kind of in this endless cycle that if we don't kind of jump in and like make a stop now, you know, the algorithms could potentially, you know, like make women not exist no more on the airwaves or within playlisting. So it's really important that we, you know, we put a stop to it. Like I mentioned earlier on with that statistic of, you know, within the top 100, women having to work with men to chart or to be successful or to get radio airplay. And, you know, if that continues without us stepping in and acknowledging it or making a change, then, you know, how many years will it take? 5 years, 10 years before women solo artists don't exist at all on our airwaves? And just like going back a slight point as well, I wanted to bring up, you know, why another barrier for women and why women, you know, artists, you know, drop off within the industry, because if they have less opportunities, they have, they make less money, and therefore they can't survive as, you know, female musicians. They can't have thriving careers, and which is why it was so important that myself and Linda, we looked into radio, I was really keen to do that because, you know, Vick's research has highlighted, you know, that it's prevalent across labels. It's a situation amongst music publishers. It's 18% amongst PRS writers. There's a Roster's report about managers as well, saying 27% of manager rosters worldwide are female artists. So, you know, and we know it's in radio as well, but if women aren't getting the support on radio, they're not getting royalty income from that. Obviously, you know, we know that, you know, streaming income is super, super low, but royalty income from radio plays is something that can sustain an artist's career. And if men are getting majority, if not all, of the money from these plays, then how are women, you know, going to be able to sustain a long-term career within the industry?
Yeah, and I think also interesting point there is, I went to a talk about AI versus radio hosts or DJs. And, you know, at the end of a 2-hour-long conversation, one of the main reasons why it came to the forefront that we will actually always need human DJs and radio hosts is because of that human curation and touch that is brought to you as a consumer. Because I, as a woman who is a radio host, I have made a very conscious decision in my 4.5 years of radio that every week, because I do 2-hour show every week with new music, so never play the same song twice. I literally, before I go on air, will look at how many of my songs are either written, produced, or actually performed by women, because that's my obligation. Because I feel that way, because I am a woman. Now, if you take that human aspect away, then we're just looking at waveforms, and that they won't tell you, and BPMs won't tell you if a song is created by a woman or a man, and it will just end up in a playlist because of the technical aspect of it, I guess. Actually, Nadia, you mentioned a barrier, the pay gap, and I'm gonna open up the floor again to you, Vick, because you had mentioned barriers to me before, and one that I definitely don't want to leave out in this conversation before we end this is one that people get very uncomfortable talking about, but it's so important that we discuss it, and that is sexism and harassment, which has a huge impact on also why that gender gap is so big.
Yeah, and there's other research that's been conducted by the Musicians Union and the Incorporated Society of Musicians, looking into harassment and discrimination in the music industry. And something, well, they published a report called Dignity at Work 2 years ago, and something like nearly half of the respondents admitted that they had experienced harassment in their music workplaces, but 77% didn't report it for fear of backlash, fear of being branded a troublemaker, fear of their reputation being harmed in some way, fear of retaliation from the person who has harassed them. And every week, just about, and especially, I don't know what it is, maybe something to do with lockdown, every week for the past few months, sometimes it's been on a daily basis. I've had women reach out to me in different sort of scenarios and reveal to me about their experiences of being harassed in the music industry. And some of these people are really successful. So they are working at a very high level, and it's invariably working in studios, working in very male-dominated environments that these sorts of situations happen. And it's a blight on our industry. Just one incident can cause somebody to get fed up or be traumatized enough that they drop out of their music careers and go off and do something else. And it's a real problem. I think, I mean, I don't know if you read the story that was in the music press just a few weeks ago about the woman who was I think she was a sound engineer, and she was on tour with the Killers, and so this was in the music industry press a few weeks ago, and she'd written a blog about the fact that she was a sort of a bystander, a witness to really bad harassment, possibly even illegal behavior against a woman who'd been taken backstage, and the entire people backstage had all, if they hadn't participated in hurting this woman, they'd allowed it to happen and they hadn't stopped it. And this woman sort of admitted this in a blog post, and the Killers investigated and have sort of released some sort of anodyne statement about how much they support diversity and so on. But this woman's point was it had taken her 10 years or something to even write about it, to even acknowledge it, to explain that she was the only woman of about 80 people backstage on that tour, and the sort of environment that instilled. So every week we are having these Me Too revelations that are still being published, and we see various examples that get to court as well. But what about the examples that don't get to court, and women are silenced, or also by non-disclosure agreements? So there's a lot of it that is being hidden, brushed under the carpet, and really have to do an awful lot more to stamp out that sort of behaviour, and for women to be able to and men to be able to protect each other. And as the ISM report is titled, that we can have dignity at work, because these recording studios, there are workplaces, that's not mucking around having a bit of fun. These are professional work environments, and so a whole culture change has to shift.
Yeah, definitely. Our next question actually leads into something else that I know all of us want to touch upon, is the intersection of race and gender. And we have a question from Namiwa or Namyawa. I hope I say it correctly. It says, "Hello ladies, I'm setting up a movement for BME women in music and the arts in the West Midlands. I've just registered the company, Girl Grant UK, and I'm beginning to apply for funding to deliver the work. Do you have any advice or guidance for the company, and are you open to collaborative conversations?" Okay, you know what? I love, you ask, you don't get. Harriet, do you have any advice or guidance for someone starting this type of company?
Don't get blocked from Instagram like I have with our new
please, could you please shortly explain, because we were talking about it before we started.
I mean, it's a whole other discussion, but yeah, so I set up a Girls to the Front Instagram page when I launched the platform, which has since been removed, and it might have something to do with the political nature of some of the posts, which were very not that political, and it might be that there's some AI robot policing Instagram, so yeah, I guess be a little bit careful with what you post, but I think when looking at intersectionality, I think fundamentally where it's similar is that what we're looking for is equality on stages. And I think, I think something that's interesting, we touched on Nicki Minaj and Cardi B earlier, about why can't there be two of them? But even if you look at the relationship between them two, that is presented, whether it's by them or by their PR, as being competition, and it's them versus them. And I think something that's really important when working with females in the industry, and working with ethnic minority groups, is that you need to see each other as peers and not as competition. I saw a really lovely quote recently that said, "She's not your competition, she's proof that it can be done." And I think that's what is a really important thing, because we as industry professionals and as women and of people of diverse culture can help to give people a step up or a leg up, but what you can also do as an artist at a grassroots level is work with people that are similar to you and make sure you're all helping each other up within the industry. I had a Zoom call with about 20 female artists last night, a Girls to the Front Zoom call, and they were all saying that there aren't any other platforms like this that put them together and, you know, encourage them to sort of work together. And every single one of them says that since being part of this group, they'll never, you know, make a record without including another female again. And actually, I think even within the groups and being a minority, I think even then you can still be blinkered, and because you don't see other women in the industry, you're not even looking for them to work with yourself. So my advice would be to encourage that the artist she works with, and her, because you know she's a minority setting up a business as a woman, encourage you to work with people similar to you and all, you know, rise up your peers.
Brilliant. Nadia, any advice?
Yeah, I'll just echo what, you know, a lot of what Harriet said. I think, you know, collaboration is hugely important, and you know, especially regionally, I think, you know, that's great that you're up in the Midlands. I think, you know, it's just extremely important to connect, because, you know, we need to make sure that we're doing outreach work to support you know, women across the UK. But also, you know, there's so much work that needs to be done. You know, there's so much things that need to be fixed for women in the music industry, whether it's executives, whether it's female creatives, musicians, that, you know, one platform can't, you know, do it alone. So I think collaboration is so important with you know, different platforms, especially, you know, particularly when you're looking at, you know, intersectionality. That could be a great way to collaborate with another platform, or, you know, like collaborating with another platform that's really good at doing a particular thing. Like She Said So, for example, you know, are really great with their mentorship program. So it's about, you know, going, okay, well, I want to do this section of work. Let's collaborate and talk with other women, other organizations that are in the industry. And that's what I've been doing, you know, with, you know, my reports, with my first report, Seat at the Table. You know, as much as, you know, I'm at the forefront of women in control, I didn't create that by myself, because I had all these incredible women in the industry, Vick Bain included, who gave me, you know, so much support, so much advice on it, and helped me get it out to the right people. So we are collaborating, and we are helping each other get our voices heard, our message heard. And it's only by us doing that we're going to be able to, you know, to make change. I think, you know, probably, you know, some people in the industry might want us just to be in one little pot in the section, to be like, right, well, we can just give you a bit of funding and that's it. We've covered, you know, women in music. But like Vic touched on as well, you know, we are 51% of the population, you know, we're over half of the population, but women continue to be seen as like niche or like a specialist kind of subject within music, which is just baffling. So, you know, we just need to keep the conversation going. You know, the more networks that are out there, we need to just connect women, you know, like the work that Harriet does with Girls to the Front. I've been on one of the sessions, and it's so important to have that support network for women in music, and have that experience of like shared experiences, sharing stories, and giving support can do so much, you know, to making sure that female artists don't drop off. But yeah, some of other you know, other ones in the music industry need to be the ones leading the charge in terms of like campaigning and lobbying, whoever it is. So, you know, with radio, they need to be putting policies in place to have equal play for women. Like for Radio 1, for example, they've got 45% of women. This is in a statement they gave back to us, and they've got 45% females on their playlist. However, their stats show that their top 20 acts that they've been playing over the last year are 85% male. So there's no point you putting 45% women on your playlist if you're not giving them the same support. So it's continually calling, you know, these organizations out and holding them accountable, and, you know, protecting women and trying to create allies within the industry, and trying to get people on board to, you know, to get these policies. I think, you know, it's come to that point, you know, we need to enforce these policies and get organizations to come up to 50-50 equality for women. Like Harriet said at the start of the conversation, that's all we're asking for is equality, and it's overdue, long overdue.
Yeah, and I think, you know, it all starts with acknowledging and having conversations, and just not crossing boundaries while trying to make change. I think that's also something that is really important. Hopefully we can get this last question in from Siobhan, and Vic, I'll present this one to you, how can we encourage funding organizations and large organizations to take responsibility for sexual harassment complaints in the event where everyone is, this is so interesting, where everyone is a freelancer and nobody is employed on a rolling contract, which you actually see more and more now, especially within the creative industries. That's the structure of a lot of companies and organizations. And then as she adds, where there is no regulatory authority for self-employed women to supervise companies' policies, where are the best places to go?
But the point about freelancers is so important. You know, there's such a high percentage of, well, not only musicians who are all self-employed, but other people in you know, managers and other people in the industry as well. And it is literally the original gig economy, where there is no employment protection whatsoever. So I think there needs to be changes in legislation that extend employment protections to freelancers as well as those who are employed as well. So if you have a freelance contract and you're working with a particular festival or venue or label or whatever it is, that you automatically fall under their employment protections as well. And that's something that could be changed by legislation. How easy it's going to be to get that through with our particular government, I think that's probably not going to happen until we have a change of government. But that's something that I've in other organisations that I'm a board director of are calling for. So yeah, so there's that point about freelancers. And sorry, what was the second point? The end of the.
What is a good place, or where can self-employed female freelancers go when something like this happens? And please, Harriet and Nadia, if you know of somewhere once Vick is done, chuck it in there, because I think that's a brilliant question.
The trade bodies exist to give protection and advice, you know, depending on your particular speciality. So I'm currently a board director of the Incorporated Society of Musicians, and as long as you are a professional working in the music industry, you can join. So it's not just for musicians, although I think a very high percentage of the membership are. But even if you're a PR or a lawyer or you know, as long as you're a professional working in the music industry, and they give really good legal advice. They've got in-house lawyers. They give, you know, lots and lots of fact sheets and counselling lines and all sorts of things. So I really, and I know Nadia sits on a board as well. So join a trade body, join an organisation that can give you that legal backup.
Amazing. Yeah, I thought that's something that you also doesn't immediately come to mind. But yeah, if you think about it, so many people are self-employed within the music industry. We have come to the end of today's session. I knew this was going to happen at some point. There's so much to unpack and to uncover, and you know, but I think we've definitely covered both ends of the spectrum, looking at artists, but also, you know, within boardrooms, and presented potential solutions. And, you know, even though it's a long way to go, the answers and the people willing to do the work are here. And, you know, especially with the great question of what men can do to be allies. We need everyone to get involved. You know, we can't have just women or people who identify as women or female to do all the work. We need everyone involved to, you know, get their hands a little bit dirty. I want to thank all our speakers today, Harriet, Vick, Nadia. It's been so insightful. Thank you also, Delic Platform, for hosting this at Delic Network. It's been, even for me, I've learned a lot just listening to you three speak. It's been amazing. I hope everyone who joined us today found this really helpful. Everything is recorded, so you can listen back to this session. You can watch it back. Also, make sure you follow and check out Delic Network socials, which is delic.network. And if you missed anything or you thought this was great, feel free to rewatch and share it with anybody you know, and keep your eyes out for the next sessions. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.